Welcome. It's time to let go of the burdens of today. Let your body sink into the softness of your bed. Today, we're going to listen to a story about letting go of the past, not holding on to what no longer exists. Close your eyes, take a deep breath in, and exhale slowly. Don't try to think, just relax. Welcome to Lotus Whisper. Tonight, we open the door to a truth that has been waiting for you, a quiet wisdom held not in books, but in the spaciousness of your own presence. We are going to explore the simple, profound power of releasing the past. For so long, you may have been taught that you must only trust what you can see, what you can touch, and what you can control. You may have heard that the universe is random and that life holds no deeper meaning. This belief tells you to fight, to chase, and, above all, to hold on tight, fearing that if you don't, everything will fall apart. But we pause here, just for a moment, and we ask the gentle, honest question. If holding on so tight were truly the answer, why does it still leave you feeling lost? Why does trying to control everything, especially the stories and shadows of yesterday, only bring more anxiety, more fear, more doubt? Why do you still lie awake wondering if it's really going to be okay? The mind struggles because it wants something solid to hold on to. It wants a clear boundary between self and other, between good and bad, between success and failure. And often, the most solid thing it tries to clutch is the finished story of the past. Yet, the truth, as revealed in the deep wisdom of the Buddhist path, is that trust comes when you work hard, but are not owned by the results. The truth is that your very sense of I is not a fixed point, but a flowing, changing process. The past is nothing more than the memory of yesterday's flow, and clinging to it is like trying to grip water. The practice of letting go is not about denial, it's about seeing clearly. It's about recognizing that control is temporary, fragile, and cracks under pressure. True safety comes from accepting the impermanence of everything, especially the moments that are already gone. Tonight, we allow the memory of yesterday to soften, to dissolve into the quiet current of the present breath. We begin to feel the peace that arises, not because the world or the past changed, but because your relationship to it is changing. You are no longer at war with the story of what was. Now, allow yourself to sink a little deeper into the mattress. Feel the weight of your head, the quiet support beneath your shoulders. As we move into the night, let this be our gentle vow. To walk with the memories of the past, not by hardening or pretending we don't care, but by opening and allowing the truth of this moment to be enough. Please remember to subscribe to the channel to hear more. The deepest wound we carry is often the belief that we are the story of what happened. We confuse the fleeting nature of experience with the eternal truth of our awareness. This confusion is deeply rooted in the illusion that control equals safety, a belief that has been tirelessly trained into the modern mind. We are taught to manage outcomes, to predict results, and to secure our future by fiercely guarding the lessons, the scars, and the identities forged in the fires of the past. But Buddhism gently exposes this as an illusion. Control, as we try to grasp it, is temporary, it is fragile, and it inevitably cracks under pressure. Think of a time when you tried your absolute hardest to prevent a certain outcome. A relationship ending, a job changing, a loss occurring. You held on so tight, you fought with every fiber of your being, and yet the fundamental, unyielding force of impermanence moved through the event anyway. What was left behind was not only the pain of the event itself, but the deeper, more exhausting pain of resistance, the pain of trying to freeze a river in motion. The past, in this context, is the ultimate object of clinging. We cling to the good old days, believing happiness is only accessible by replicating what was. We cling to past failures, using them as proof of our inadequacy, a heavy chain that limits our present action. We cling to past identities. I was an athlete, I was successful, I was wronged, and try to force the flow of our ever-changing self into a rigid container. But the wisdom of this path invites you to see through this. You are not the rigid container. You are the flow of experience. The illusion of control is nowhere more apparent than in our relationship with time. We believe we can control the past by endlessly recounting it, polishing the memories we like, and burying the ones we fear. We believe the future can be controlled by meticulous planning based on the flawed premise that what happened before will happen again. But all of this frantic holding on leaves you feeling lost. You lie awake at night, tired not from the day's tasks, but from the spiritual exhaustion of being at war with the ceaseless unfolding of life. True safety, the Buddha taught, comes not from control, but from accepting the impermanence of everything. It comes from choosing to meet the reality of change with calm awareness instead of resistance. The past is simply a name we give to a collection of moments that have ceased to be. They are not here. They live only as energetic imprints, as thoughts and feelings that surface now. When we fight the reality that they are gone, when we try to recreate or deny them, we are simply amplifying the root of all suffering, which is craving. Craving doesn't just mean wanting more. It also means wanting the present moment to be different than it is, and this includes wanting the past to be either back or undone. This resistance to what is locks us into a cycle of anxiety, fear, and doubt. Imagine yourself sitting by a vast, powerful river. The water that flowed past you a moment ago, that is the past. You could try to reach out and scoop it back, to analyze it, to chastise it for its current, but it is impossible. The water is already far downstream. All that remains is the riverbed, the shape of the banks, and the water flowing now. The Buddhist path doesn't ask you to ignore the riverbed. It simply asks you to focus your attention on the water that is flowing right now. This is why the practice of coming back to the breath is so essential. Your breath is the one thing that cannot be an event of the past or the future. It is always an event of the present. With each long, slow inhalation, you anchor yourself to the now. With each gentle, complete exhalation, you release the energy of the past, the tension in your shoulders, the tightness in your gut, the looping thoughts in your mind. The deep and profound teaching of no self, anatta, is the direct key to unlocking the past's grip. The mind wants a clear boundary between self and other, between who you were and who you are. It wants a fixed, solid I to hold on to. This I is the one that was wronged, the one that succeeded, the one that failed. But the teaching of shunyata, emptiness, reveals that these very divisions are constructions. Useful sometimes, yes, but ultimately empty of any fixed inherent meaning. The I that you call you is a flow of experience, constantly open to transformation. When you see that your past identity is a construction, a collection of thoughts and memories, not a fixed point, the need to defend it or cling to it softens. You realize you are not the story. You are the awareness that hears the story. From that space of awareness, a profound peace begins to arise. This peace is not dependent on the world changing, but on your relationship to the world and your own history changing. You're no longer at war with the story of what was. This is where true strength is born. Not from hardening yourself, not from pretending you don't care about what happened, but from the radical act of opening. Opening to the present moment, allowing the emotional residue of the past to be felt and accepted without resistance. When you open, you walk with your fear, with your grief, with your old self, but you are no longer defined by them. The past is a powerful teacher when you observe its lessons without being owned by its results. You observe the patterns of grasping and resistance that caused suffering, and you use that insight to inform your choices now. You do not try to control the river of memory, but you learn to swim in it, to move with its current instead of resisting it. Let the simple, profound truth of impermanence be the lullaby that soothes the frantic, controlling mind. Everything you have built, everything you have experienced, everything you will become is touched by change. Even your most meaningful progress will one day pass. This is not a cause for despair. It is an opening. It is a call to deepen your trust, not just in life's unfolding, but in its constant, quiet fading. Take a deep breath now. As you breathe out, imagine the heavy, thick pages of a book. This book is the past. As you exhale, imagine the pages turning to dust, soft and weightless, a cloud of gold that dissolves into the air. The story is gone, but the wisdom remains, forged in the cycle of experience. You are free to meet life as it is, because you no longer need life to confirm an old fixed identity. You are free to float in the unknown, because emptiness, the lack of a fixed permanent self or a fixed permanent past, is not a lack. It is the ground of being. It is the spaciousness in which life happens. When you trust that space, you stop fearing what's next, and you are released. You are here, now, present. The past is not. Let the body become heavy and relaxed. Let the mind become soft and still. The work of letting go is not about forcing an erasure, but about recognizing what is already absent. You are the awareness that hears the voice, not the voice itself. You are the awareness that hears the voice of the past, not the voice itself. Let the mattress hold you. Let the darkness comfort you. You are safe in this moment. Imagine a quiet monastery, high in the misty mountains. The air is cool and smells of pine and damp earth. Inside the hall, a young monk, let us call him Kenzo, is perpetually scrubbing the wooden floor. He scrubs not because the floor is visibly dirty, but because the movement gives him something to do. His heart is heavy with the memory of a promise he broke years ago, a promise to his dying master to stay and tend to the garden, a promise he abandoned when the urge to travel the world became too strong. He returned years later, finding the garden withered and his master gone. The memory of that failure, that betrayal of trust, has become the lens through which he sees his entire life. He believes he is fundamentally flawed, incapable of true devotion. He believes he is the monk who failed. He is clinging to the past as a form of self-punishment, as a belief that if he just scrubs hard enough, he might erase the consequence that is already written in the annals of time. He scrubs with a fierce, anxious energy, trying to control his sense of self through a frantic physical act. One day, the elder monk, Master Hakuin, watched Kenzo's anxious movements. Hakuin was silent for a long time, simply watching the sweat bead on Kenzo's brow and the desperate energy in his arms. Finally, Hakuin spoke, his voice like the soft rustling of dry leaves. "Kenzo, tell me," Hakuin began. "The water you pour onto the floor now, is it the same water you poured yesterday?" Kenzo paused, the rough fiber of the brush still in his hand, confused. "No, master. That water is gone. It evaporated or soaked into the earth. And the floor you scrub now," Hakuin continued, his gaze gentle but penetrating. "Is it the same wooden surface as yesterday? The fibers have softened. The air has changed its depth.
Temperature. The dust has settled and been cleared. It is similar, yes, but that moment of the floor is also gone." Kenzo felt a stir of unease. He knew the master was not talking about the floor. "Master, I am scrubbing away my failure. I am scrubbing away the self that left the garden." Hakuin shook his head slowly. "The self that left the garden is already gone, Kenzo. It is as evaporated as the water. The self you are now trying to punish is a ghost, a collection of memories wearing the clothes of the present moment. You are not scrubbing a floor. You are fighting a shadow." Hakuin then gave Kenzo a different task. "Go to the well," he instructed. "Take this bucket, fill it, and walk with it back to the hall. Do this until the sun sets." Kenzo, confused but obedient, went to the well. He filled the bucket, its wooden staves soaked with the clear cold water. But as he started to walk back, the water sloshed over the rim with every step. He tried to walk faster, to control the movement, but the more he hurried, the more water he lost. He tried to walk slower, to hold the bucket perfectly still, but the water only grew stiller for a moment before the rhythm of his breathing caused it to rock and spill again. He returned to Hakuin, his robes damp and his eyes filled with frustrated tears. "Master, I cannot control the water. No matter what I do, it spills. I try to hold it steady, but I lose it." Hakuin simply smiled, the lines around his eyes deepening. "And how much of the water is still in the bucket, Kenzo?" "Most of it, master," Kenzo admitted. "Perhaps 4/5 remains." "Then you have achieved 4/5 of your purpose, Kenzo," Hakuin said softly. "The bucket of your life is the present moment. The water is the energy you need for this day. When you grasp at it, when you strain to keep every single drop of the past, you lose the energy you need for the present. The effort to control the memory, the effort to erase the mistake, is the very thing that makes you stumble and spill your life's precious vitality. The water that spilled is already gone. It nourished the earth. It is not here. Why exhaust yourself trying to reclaim what is already fulfilling a different purpose? The past you cling to is not a solid object. It is a flowing moment that has already flowed." Kenzo looked down at the damp earth beneath his feet, nourished by his own frantic efforts. He began to understand the profound lesson in the simple water. His past mistake, leaving the garden, was like the spilled water. The initial pain was the spill, but his constant anxiety and self-punishment, the spiritual exhaustion, was the frantic effort to try and scoop up the water from the dirt and put it back in the bucket. An impossible, draining task. The monk's core identity, the monk who failed, was a false, fixed point, a single drop of spilled water trying to define the vastness of the river. Hakuin instructed him, "Now, walk again. Do not rush. Do not strain.
Walk with the simple intention of carrying the water. When it spills, do not look back at the spot on the ground. Keep your eyes on the path just ahead. Feel the weight of the water that remains in the bucket and be grateful for that. Kenzo went back to the well. This time, he walked not with control, but with sincerity. He felt the wobble of the water, and when a bit sloshed over, he didn't stop. He didn't tighten his grip. He simply adjusted his body, a small, immediate, fluid movement, and continued. He realized that the water spilled less when he allowed his entire body to move with the rhythm, instead of trying to isolate his hands and hold them rigid. He was flowing with the moment, not fighting it. When he returned, the water was still not perfectly full, but he was calm. He was not tired. He felt the lightness of release. This story of Kenzo is the story of letting go. The weight we feel at night is the weight of the bucket we are trying to carry rigidly. The weight of a past we are trying to control. The past is the spilled water. It is gone. It is nourishing something else now, and your attempt to reclaim it only diminishes your power to meet the present. The path is not about erasing the memory, but about transforming your relationship to it. When you stop seeing the past as a collection of fixed facts that define you, and start seeing it as a collection of vanished moments that informed you, the grip softens. The story of me is much more spacious than the old identities you try to hold on to. Take a slow breath now, feeling the air fill your lungs completely. As you exhale, let go of the rigid grip on your shoulders, your jaw, your hands. Feel the freedom that comes from knowing the water that spilled is gone. You cannot control it, but you can choose right now how you walk with the water that remains. You can choose sincerity over striving. You can choose fluidity over rigid control. This is the end of the war with yourself. This is the beginning of peace. Just rest. Tonight, we take the next gentle step toward freedom, moving from the illusion of control to the profound acceptance of impermanence, anicca. In the quiet depths of our mind, the greatest resistance we face is not against the future, but against the truth that the past is entirely and absolutely gone. We mistake the tapestry for the thread that has already been woven. We cling to the past, both the joys and the sorrows, because deep down, we resist the fundamental nature of change. We resist the fact that nothing, not our bodies, not our feelings, not our relationships, and certainly not our identity, can be held forever. Imagine you are standing on a quiet shore, watching the tide come in. You see a beautiful shell, perfectly formed, shining in the sun. You pick it up, delighting in its solidity, its distinct shape. But the moment you hold it, you begin to fear losing it. You put it in your pocket, and the fear transforms into the work of possession, defending it, checking it, worrying about it. The truth of the shell is that its beauty was born from change, from the water wearing down the sand, from the life that once inhabited it. It is inherently part of the flow. By trying to freeze its existence, you turn a beautiful memory into a burden of anxiety. The past is exactly like that shell. It was beautiful, or painful, or transformative, but it was an event, a collection of conditions that have dissolved. Clinging to the past is resisting the nature of change. It is arguing with the universe, saying, no, that moment should not be over. But the river of time flows only one way. When we accept this truth, when we accept impermanence as the very foundation of existence, we find freedom. This acceptance is not resignation. It is a fierce, courageous act of alignment. It is recognizing that the only thing that is real, the only thing that has substance, is the moment you are breathing now. The Buddha taught that our fear of the past and our anxiety about the future are both rooted in the illusion of a fixed, permanent self that could somehow exist outside of time.
To gently strip away this illusion, we turn to the practice of the 5 remembrances. These are not morbid pronouncements. They are profound, soothing truths whispered by the ancient earth itself. They are the simple, unvarnished facts of a human life, designed to liberate us from the exhausting fight against reality. Hear them now, not as concepts to be analyzed, but as sounds that invite your body to soften, to relax, and to surrender to the truth. The first remembrance is this: I am subject to aging. There is no way to avoid aging. Let that sink in. The body you are resting in now is the same body that has carried you through every moment of your past, and it is a body of constant, subtle change. The skin that remembers the sun of yesterday, the bones that hold the lessons of every fall, are always in motion. We spend so much energy trying to look, act, or feel like the self we were 10 years ago, or even 10 minutes ago. We try to force the present self to conform to the past's image, but this body is flowing, shifting, softening, hardening. When you remember this truth, the need to cling to a fixed identity, the youthful self, the strong self, the successful self of the past begins to loosen. You become more interested in the life that is happening inside this body now, rather than the memory of the life that has already passed through it. The second remembrance: I am subject to illness. There is no way to avoid illness. This is the gentle reminder that vulnerability is not a flaw. It is the fundamental condition of life. Every moment of your past, every moment of your present is woven with health and ease, but also with fragility and pain. We try to use the past as proof that we should be immune. I was never sick then. I was always strong then. But the reality of life is that the body is an ecosystem, always
Adjusting, always responding. Accepting your vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. It is the deepest form of human strength. It frees you from the rigid expectation that you should always be the fixed, perfect self of a past memory, allowing you to be gentle with the self you are today. The third remembrance: I am subject to death. There is no way to avoid death. This is the hardest truth, yet it holds the greatest liberation. The knowledge that all of this, the anxieties, the triumphs, the very awareness that hears these words, will one day dissolve, is the ultimate release from the grip of the past. The stories of yesterday, the wrongs done to you, the mistakes you made, they all lose their tyrannical power when measured against the vast, quiet truth of your impermanence. The time spent clinging to what is gone is time stolen from the life you have right now. The awareness of death makes this moment precious, not fearful. It reminds you that the only place to truly live is in the spaciousness of the present. Why carry the heavy baggage of yesterday if the path ahead requires you to walk lightly? The fourth remembrance: all that is dear to me and everyone I love are subject to change and separation. The deepest clinging to the past is the clinging to relationships that have changed or ended. The feeling of loss, the sharp edge of grief, is the awareness that a past configuration of love, friendship, or family is no longer here. But this remembrance gently reminds you that this change is inevitable. It is the universal law of being. To love is to accept the coming separation, the coming change. The love you felt in the past does not vanish, it transforms.
Clinging to the form of the past relationship blocks your ability to honor the essence that remains, the memory, the lesson, the simple, tender love. By accepting that everyone and everything you love is flowing and changing, you stop fighting the reality of a dissolved relationship and can simply appreciate the gift that it was. Finally, the fifth and most pivotal remembrance. I am the owner of my actions. Karma. I shall be heir to my actions. This is where the past truly releases its grip, because this remembrance redirects all your energy back to the present moment. If the past self, the one who made mistakes, the one who was wronged, is dissolved, what remains? Only the consequence of that self's actions, which you inherit now. But you do not inherit the self itself. The key is that the future self will inherit the consequence of the actions you take right now. This moves your focus entirely from the dead weight of what I was to the vital energy of what I am doing. You are the owner of your actions in this breath. The past's karma is only truly activated by the intention, the volition you bring to the present moment. Do you choose to react now out of the old pain or out of new awareness? This choice is freedom. This choice is the beginning of the end of the past's control.
Let the air around you feel cool and clean. Imagine yourself standing on a vast, open plain. The wind is constantly moving, shifting the sand, reshaping the dunes. There is nothing fixed, nothing solid, only the constant, quiet movement of time. This is the truth of your life. The anxieties of the past, the fears of what you did or did not do, are just shifting sand. You can choose to struggle against the wind, or you can choose to stand firm in your center, aware that the ground beneath you, while constantly changing, is always supporting you now. The past, therefore, is not a collection of broken pieces. It is the wisdom in your bones, the clarity in your mind, the simple, unvarnished tenderness in your heart. It is the thread that has already been woven into the tapestry. You do not need to pull that thread out and re-examine it. You need only focus on the space where the tapestry is being woven now, with the thread of your present intention. Sink deeper into rest. The more you surrender to the truth of impermanence, the less the past can hold you. It is the law of the universe. It is the path to freedom. We have released our grip on the illusion of permanence, recognizing that the past is a flow that is already past. Now, we must turn our attention to the great loom of life, the principle known as karma. Often in the hurried, surface-level understanding of the world, karma is feared as a system of cosmic punishment, a rigid ledger where past mistakes are tallied and future suffering is guaranteed. This misunderstanding binds us more tightly to the past, making us feel like eternal debtors waiting for the inevitable blow. But the profound wisdom of the Buddhist path offers a far more liberating view. Karma is not fate. It is not destiny. Karma is fundamentally volition. It is intention. It is the subtle, powerful energy of the mind that moves just before the action is born. The Buddha said, "It is volition that I call karma. Having willed, one acts by body, speech, or intellect." This shifts the entire focus away from the distant, unchangeable event of the past and places the power squarely into the only place where true change is possible, the present moment. The past is a fixed record of actions that were born from intentions that are now gone. You cannot change what you said 5 years ago or what was done to you last week. Those actions are complete.
But the karma you are generating now is determined by your present volition, your intention when you recall the past. Think of a difficult memory, a failure, a regretted word, a moment of profound shame. The event is gone. Yet, when you summon that memory now, what is your intention? Is your volition one of self-recrimination? Are you intentionally using that memory to reinforce a belief in your own inadequacy? If so, you are generating fresh, painful karma now. You are choosing to act on the mind with the intention of suffering. Or is your volition one of clarity and learning? Are you viewing the memory with the gentle, quiet intention of observing the cause and effect, extracting the wisdom, and releasing the pain? If so, you are generating fresh, liberating karma now. You are choosing to act on the mind with the intention of freedom. The past's karma is a seed that lies dormant. It only blossoms when it is watered by the intention of your present attention. If you water it with regret and self-judgment, it grows into suffering. If you water it with understanding and compassion, it transmutes into wisdom. The work of letting go is therefore an act of profoundly skillful karma creation. You are no longer wasting your vital energy fighting the historical event. Instead, you are dedicating your intention to showing up well in this moment, knowing that the quality of this present intention is the only thing that truly contributes to what comes next. This is the path of shifting your energy. Instead of exhausting yourself by trying to make sense of the past's mistakes, you focus entirely on the sincerity and clarity of your current intention. You plant new seeds by choosing to be kind with your thoughts, attentive with your speech, and present with your actions. Imagine a revered Zen master, Bankei, known for his teaching of the unborn mind. A traveling scholar came to him burdened by the actions of his youth. The scholar's face was etched with self-reproach, and he could barely look the master in the eye. "Master," the scholar pleaded, his voice raspy with years of shame, "I committed terrible acts in my past. I have spent decades trying to atone, but the memory, the guilt, the karma of those deeds, it follows me like a curse. How can I possibly escape it?" Bankei, who was sitting quietly, sipping tea, looked up, his eyes clear and peaceful. "You say this karma follows you?" "Yes, master. It is heavy. It defines me," the scholar insisted, clutching his robes over his heart. "I am a bad person because of what I did." Bankei put down his cup. "Bring this karma to me," he said simply. "Set it on the mat here. Let me see it." The scholar was bewildered. "But master, I cannot. It is not a thing. It is a memory, a feeling, a burden in my heart." Bankei smiled, a gentle knowing curve of his lips. "Then it is not a thing at all. If you cannot place it on the mat, if it does not exist as a fixed object outside of this moment, how can it possibly define you?" The scholar argued, "But the actions were real. The suffering I caused was real. The cause for this effect, that is my karma. The actions were real, yes," Bankei agreed softly, "and the effect of those actions, the suffering caused, is now written into the history of those who received it. That history is complete. It is the spilled water that nourished the earth. But your personal suffering now is not the action itself. It is your intention to hold on to it. That heavy feeling in your heart, that shame, that is the volition you are choosing in this present moment, using a past event as your tool." Bankei leaned forward, his voice a quiet whisper. "The past's actions are fixed, but the power to define who you are, the power to choose your response to that fixed history. That power is unborn in this very breath. It is untouched by all the years before. This shame you cling to is simply the will to hold a ghost. Release that will. He continued, if you believe you are a bad person because of the past, then every good thing you do now is an effort to compensate, which is still an attachment to the past. If you simply recognize that you are the awareness that hears the story, you are free to act now with the simple intention of presence, kindness, and sincerity. Your karma is created by the why of your next breath, not the what of your last one. The scholar sat in silence, the weight beginning to lift as he saw the profound simplicity of the truth. He had been creating new chains in the present moment by willing himself to be perpetually ashamed of a ghost. The moment he chose the intention of simple, open presence, the chain snapped. He was no longer the bad person of his history. He was merely the man breathing right now, choosing his volition in this moment. This is the deepest understanding of karma in the context of letting go. It is not about escaping punishment. It is about recognizing the continuous, creative power of your mind's intention. Take a long, slow breath. Feel the deep stillness of the night supporting you. The past is not a heavy stone you must carry. The heavy stone is your will to hold the memory in a way that generates pain. Let that volition soften. Let the intention to be ashamed, or to be fearful, or to cling to an old identity simply dissolve with your next exhale. You are here now. Your power is here now. Your intention is the only thing that matters because it is the only thing that is alive. Let your whole body sink deeper into the mattress. Release the subtle tension in your chest. That tension is often the physical manifestation of the will to hold something that is already gone. Choose stillness. Choose presence. Choose to create the karma of peace. We have gently moved beyond the frantic effort of control, and we have softened our resistance to impermanence. We now understand that our present intention, our volition, is the only thing creating new karma. But to truly cut the final cord with the past, we must go to the deepest, most liberating truth of all, shunyata, or the wisdom of emptiness. Do not let this word alarm you. Emptiness, in the context of deep Buddhist wisdom, does not mean nothingness or a void. It is not something scary or dark. Emptiness is the realization that nothing, absolutely nothing, possesses a fixed, independent, unchangeable self-nature. Everything is empty of inherent meaning. Everything is in a state of being dependent upon everything else. This profound
insight is the ultimate balm for the mind that clings to the past. Why? Because the suffering from the past comes not from the events themselves, but from the labels we glue onto them. We cling to the idea that a past event was a fixed, eternal failure, or that a past identity was a permanent success. We cling to the rigid boundary that declares, I was wronged, and that makes me a victim forever. Or, I failed that test, and that makes me an unworthy person for life. Shunyata reveals that these divisions, good, bad, success, failure, are mental constructions. They are essential tools for navigating the world, but they are utterly empty of inherent eternal meaning. Imagine you are looking at a faded photograph from 10 years ago. It shows you doing something you now deeply regret. The memory surfaces, and instantly the mind's old, rusty gears start turning. Shame, regret, I was terrible. That thought is a label.
It feels as solid as rock, but shunyata asks you to examine it. Is that label, terrible person, a fixed, independent truth that exists outside of your mind's current judgment? The answer is no. The action happened, yes. The consequences followed. But the label, terrible person, is an interpretation, a construct, dependent upon 1,000 ever-changing factors. Your current mood, your fatigue, the cultural standards of the time, and the self-judgment you learned long ago. The moment you see that the label is merely a concept, and that concept is empty of fixed meaning, its tyrannical power over you dissolves. The past's defining identities, the one you were trying to hold on to, or the one you were desperately trying to run from, are ultimately empty. They are pictures, not reality. This truth is deeply connected to the teaching of anatta, or no self. The sense of I that you feel, the one that believes it has been carrying the past's burden, is a process, a flow, not a fixed point. It is like the flame of a candle. The flame you see now is not the exact same flame you saw a moment ago. The conditions that sustain it, the wax, the oxygen, the wick, are constantly being consumed and renewed. The flame is continuous, but never identical. Your self is the same. It is a continuous, flowing process of physical form, changing feelings, shifting perceptions, new mental formations, and evolving consciousness. The I that experienced the past is gone, just like the spilled water from the previous story. The moment you realize your identity is flow, you are released from the exhausting spiritual effort of trying to squeeze that vast, open flow into the tiny, fixed container of a past label. Let's imagine a quiet, small village nestled by a flowing stream, where the old master Kenshin lives. Kenshin was once a renowned warrior, famous for his skill and terrible temper. In a moment of rage, he nearly destroyed his own family, a memory that has plagued him for 40 years. He left his life behind and became a humble gardener, working tirelessly and silently. A young man, Taito, arrived, seeking wisdom. Taito had heard the stories of the warrior's past and came to Kenshin expecting to find a scarred, permanently tormented soul, a man defined by his terrible past. Taito asked, "Master Kenshin, they speak of your history. Do you not fear the terrible karma you carry? How do you, the great warrior who nearly ruined his own life, find peace in tending to simple flowers?" Kenshin smiled gently, his eyes crinkling at the corners. He paused his work, holding up a small, empty, beautifully carved wooden box. "Look at this box, Taito. Is this box inherently beautiful?" Taito hesitated. "Yes, master, the carving is exquisite. It is a beautiful object." Kenshin then took a handful of muddy, dark soil from the garden and placed it inside the box. "Now, Taito, is this box inherently ugly?" "No, master," Taito replied, a little confused. "It is the same box, but now it holds dirt." Kenshin then emptied the dirt and placed a single, perfect, blooming white lotus flower inside. "And now, is it inherently divine?" "It holds a divine flower," said Taito. Kenshin nodded. "The box, myself, is empty, Taito. It is empty of any fixed meaning, good or bad. For 40 years, I believed that the memory of my past rage, the dirt, meant that the box itself was permanently and inherently ugly or broken. I clung to the label of the terrible warrior. But the truth of emptiness is this: the box never changed. It was always empty of a fixed identity. The identity you cling to, warrior, gardener, failure, hero, is merely the fleeting content I put inside it. The raging man is a past content. The peaceful gardener is a present content. The true self is the empty box, the awareness, which is untouched by either the rage or the peace. Kenshin gave the young man the box, which now contained only the space within. The past is the dirt that has been removed. It informed the shape of the box, but it is not its fixed meaning. Stop identifying with the content, Taito. Rest in the spaciousness of the container. This is the great rest that Shunyata offers. You are the space. You are not the label. You are not the memory. You are the container, which is always, ultimately, empty of fixed self-nature, and therefore always available to be filled with the clarity of the present moment. Let your muscles soften now. Let the knowledge that you are a flowing process, an empty container, completely relax your rigid sense of self. The anxiety that comes from trying to hold a fixed identity, that anxiety is heavy. When you realize that the fixed identity is an illusion, the anxiety has nothing left to cling to. It dissolves. Feel the vast, quiet space opening up inside you. The past cannot occupy this space because it is not solid. It is merely a concept, a ghost. Breathe in the spaciousness. Breathe out the last remnants of the label that held you captive. You are here, now. You are not who you were. You are the open awareness that simply is. We rest now in the vast, open space of emptiness, having seen that our rigid past identities are merely concepts, devoid of inherent, fixed nature. From this spaciousness, we can now observe the intricate dance of reality, moving to the profound principle of dependent origination, praticca samutpada. Dependent origination is the counter-argument to the mind's two deepest errors. The belief that the past is an isolated, fixed island that permanently defines us, and the belief that the present is an isolated, random event with no context. This teaching reveals a universal truth. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything is a strand in an infinite web of causes and conditions. Every moment, every feeling, every thought, every physical form is dependent upon countless elements that came before it, and is, in turn, conditioning countless elements that will follow. When you cling to a past failure, you are trying to isolate that failure, freezing it in time and treating it as a self-sufficient entity that can permanently contaminate the present. When you obsessively try to control the future, you are forgetting that the future is not a destination you can lock down. It is a continuously evolving product of the present moment's causes and conditions. The insight of dependent origination gently dismantles the illusion of control over the past. That past event, whether it was traumatic, regrettable, or glorious, was not a singular act. It was dependent on 1,000 causes: the state of your mind, the words of others, the cultural climate, your energy levels, and a multitude of conditions beyond your grasp. This realization is incredibly soothing because it shifts the burden of absolute, isolated responsibility. It doesn't deny your agency, but it places your action back into the vast, flowing context of life. You are not an isolated island in time. You are a vast, fluid sea of interconnectedness. The core teaching here is that the past does not define the future, because the link between the two is not rigid. The link is the present moment, your present intention, karma. The present is dependent on the past, yes, but it is also simultaneously dependent on this breath, this thought, this choice you make right now. The present moment is the only place where the dependent chain can be consciously influenced. Imagine a simple oil lamp in a dark temple. The flame is dependent on the oil in the bowl, the wick, and the oxygen in the air. If you trace the flame back to the wick and the wick back to the oil, you see the dependency. The light that shone yesterday is gone, but it informed the consumption of the oil and the blackening of the wick, which conditions the flame now. But the flame now is also conditioned by your choice to shield it from a draft. The past event is the history of the wick and the oil. You cannot change that.
History. But the light now is dependent on your immediate action, the gentle movement of your hand to block the wind. The burden we carry from the past is often the result of trying to control what is outside of our reach. Dependent origination clarifies what is truly within your reach, focusing your precious energy. Your actions, body, what you physically do or do not do. Your speech, mouth, the words you speak or choose to hold back. Your inner response, mind, how you choose to respond to a thought, a feeling, or a memory. Everything else, the way others judge your past, the ultimate outcome of a past decision, the simple fact that the past event occurred, is part of the dependent web, entirely beyond your solitary control. This is the lesson of the old master Lin Ji, who often spoke of the true person of no rank. This person, he said, is always coming and going in the portals of your senses. This person is you, yet untouched by the past's history. The past is what happened to the person with a rank, with a label, with a history. But the true you, the awareness, the consciousness, the source of volition, is always coming and going in the present, always new. When a troubled disciple once confessed to Lin Ji about a deeply regrettable past action, convinced he had ruined his life, the master did not offer cheap forgiveness. Instead, he simply asked, "Who is it that feels ruined?" The disciple, taken aback, searched within himself. "I, master, I feel ruined." "Where is this I that is ruined?" Lin Ji pressed, his voice sharp but kind. "Show me the fixed spot of this ruined identity that existed before the past event, that exists now and will exist always." The disciple could not find a fixed spot. He could only find a flow of anxious thought, a feeling of tightness in his chest, a memory. He realized that the I that was feeling ruined was merely the current accumulation of conditions, the memory, the shame, the anxiety that he himself was holding together in the present moment. The ruined self was not an isolated island from the past. It was a complex structure built in the present using old materials. Lin Ji's lesson was that the moment you stop rebuilding that anxious structure, the conditions for it to exist dissolve. You dismantle the past's power by understanding its dependency. The past can only continue to cause pain if you provide the essential conditions for its survival, your attention, and your volition to cling. As you lie here, relaxing deeper into your bed, feel the quiet stillness of your own body. Know that every cell in your body is in a state of dependent origination, dependent on the air you breathe, the food you ate, the blood flowing through your veins. None of it is fixed. All of it is constantly being renewed. You are not the past self. That self was a transient moment in the flow. You are the continuous flowing process that has the power right now to shift the conditions. Let the anxiety of trying to control the uncontrollable past fade. Focus all your gentle energy on what is truly within your reach. This breath, this thought, this choice of restful presence. In this focus, the power of the past begins to dissolve, and you find a deep, quiet peace. We have seen the illusion of the past's fixity, and we have rested in the spaciousness of emptiness. Yet, even when the concepts of the past are dissolved, a deep, persistent energy often remains, the energy of noise. This is the relentless inner commentary, the compulsive need to rehearse old arguments, replay moments of shame, or strategize a future defense against yesterday's ghosts. The clinging to the past is not just conceptual. It is a profound, subtle energy that manifests as the constant, low-level hum of the mind. Tonight, we embrace the simple, radical practice of noble silence, mauna. This is not merely the absence of speech. It is the deliberate practice of silencing the inner voice that compulsively generates stories about the past. When you stop talking externally, the energy often rushes inward, magnifying the volume of the inner chatter. This is where the true work of letting go begins. The mind's noise is the final, desperate attempt of the clinging self to prove its own existence, to keep the past alive by talking about it, even if only to itself. Think of the mind as a still, deep pool. The memories of the past, the triumphs, the mistakes, the hurts, are like stones tossed into the water long ago. The surface has settled. The event is over. But the mind's compulsive narration is like a relentless wind, constantly stirring the surface, preventing the water from becoming still enough to see its own depth. Noble silence is the practice of simply turning off the wind. You do not try to stop the thoughts. That would be another form of control and grasping. Instead, you simply observe the thoughts as mere sound, as pure, impersonal energy. When a memory of the past surfaces, a flash of regret, a sharp word you wish you hadn't said, a scene you want to change, you gently recognize it. You label it thought, memory, past story, and then you let it go. You return your awareness to the most immediate, simple truth, the feeling of your body resting, the gentle rise and fall of your breath. The greatest challenge in this practice is the discomfort of stillness. When the noise fades, we often feel a profound, uncomfortable emptiness. The mind, used to the distraction of its own chatter, finds this lack of fixed content terrifying. It rushes to fill the void, and what it often pulls back up are the loudest, most painful memories from the past. It says, "Look at this. Don't you dare be silent. You must solve this mistake from years ago." This intense discomfort is the edge of transformation. It is the sound of the old self dissolving. The Buddha often spoke of the importance of recognizing the source of our speech. This applies equally to the source of our inner dialogue. Ask yourself gently, when I think of the past, does this thought come from a place of clarity, a quiet, learned wisdom? Or does it come from a place of fear, a compulsive, defensive reaction, a desire to restore a fixed identity? The thoughts that come from clarity are quiet, spacious, and useful. They inform the present choice. The thoughts that come from fear are loud, tight, and exhausting. They seek to pull you back into the unchangeable narrative. In the quiet depths of a Zen meditation hall, where the air itself seems to hold a profound silence, there is a teaching about the softening of the armor. For years you have worn an armor built from the past, the armor of achievement, the armor of self-defense, the armor of resilience against past hurts. The noise of the mind is the sound of that armor constantly shifting, proving its existence, checking for threats. When you enter noble silence, the armor starts to become heavy and unnecessary. The discomfort you feel is the subtle sound of the metal plates starting to fall away. Underneath that rigid, defensive shell, what remains is not a fixed, solid, flawless self. What remains is a profound, often overwhelming tenderness and vulnerability. This tenderness is the true, essential self that the noise was desperately trying to protect. It is the raw, open heart that is capable of being hurt, but is also capable of feeling pure, unmediated joy and connection. The mind, clinging to the painful past, thought it was protecting you. It thought that by remembering the mistake or the trauma, it could prevent its repetition. But this hypervigilance, this noise, only created more suffering. True safety comes from embracing this vulnerability. It is the courage to say, I am open, I am exposed, I am not fixed. The past can no longer define this openness. Let your body sink further now. Imagine your entire being is dissolving into the stillness. The tension in your forehead, the tightness in your stomach, the clenching in your fists. These are all physical manifestations of the mind's frantic noise, the holding on to the past story. With every exhale, let the noise turn into pure soft sound, and let the sound dissolve into quiet. The Zen masters tell a story of a young novice, Jiso, who struggled terribly with his meditation. He was haunted by the faces of those he had disappointed in his youth. He could not sit still. His inner world was a storm of self-condemnation. He finally went to his master and confessed, "Master, the deeper I sit, the louder my past screams at me. I hear every word of blame, every sound of disappointment. I cannot find silence. My past will not let me rest." The master, who was deaf, simply smiled and took Jiso's hand. He led him to the monastery bell, a great bronze monument covered in years of patina. The master put his hand over the bell and gestured for Jiso to do the same. Then he gently struck the bell. The sound was immense, deep and penetrating, vibrating through the metal and into Jiso's hand. The master made a silent motion, asking Jiso to listen. After the main boom of the bell faded, a beautiful, sustained, ethereal overtone remained, slowly, gently dissolving into the air. The master then gestured a question. "Where did the sound go?" Jiso signed. "It dissolved into the air, master, but the vibration is still felt in the hand." The master smiled, pointing first to the bell, then to Jiso's heart, and then to the air where the sound had faded. Through gestures and quiet writing in the sand, the master explained, "Your past is the loud boom of the bell. It happened. It was real. It caused a great vibration. But the noise of your self-condemnation is the resistance to letting the echo dissolve. You are striking the bell again and again in your mind, fearing the fading." He pointed to Jiso's hand, which still felt the faint residual vibration. The truth of the past is not the noise, it is the quiet, learned wisdom, the gentle vibration that remains. That vibration is tenderness. It is the understanding that you are fragile, that you are trying your best, and that you deserve compassion. The master instructed Jiso, "Do not try to stop the booming sound of the past. Simply listen past it. Wait for the sustained, soft echo to dissolve. The true self is not the sound. It is the silence that allows the sound to fade. The moment you stop striking the bell of the past, you will find the deep, underlying stillness." From that day, Jiso practiced listening, not fighting. When the past screamed, he waited. He waited for the anxiety to exhaust itself. He waited for the defensive thoughts to finish their frantic performance. And underneath the noise, he found that quiet, sustaining vibration, the truth of his own inherent goodness, the tenderness of his own heart, untouched by the noise of history. As you lie here, resting in the silence of the night,
recognize the sounds of your own inner chatter. Is it the booming bell of the past? Do not fight it. Simply listen past it. Wait for the gentle echo to fade. Let your body soften and sink into the mattress. Allow the quiet support beneath you to be a reminder that you are not required to hold yourself rigid or to defend the ghost of a past self. Underneath the armor of noise, you are tender. You are vulnerable. You are good. And that tenderness is the greatest strength you possess. Just rest in the silence now. Rest in the knowledge that you are safe to be soft. We have learned to sit in the stillness, allowing the loud boom of the past to dissolve into a gentle, quiet echo. Now, we must place that stillness, that vulnerable, tender self, back into the vast, ceaseless current of life, the cycle the ancients called samsara. For many, samsara is a terrifying word, understood as a terrible, endless wheel of suffering from which we must frantically escape. This fear of the cycle is precisely what binds us to the past. The mind, desperate for a clean, permanent solution, looks at the events of yesterday, the pain, the loss, the failure, and concludes, I must get off this wheel. It clings to a past moment of perfection or success, believing that if it can only replicate that single, fixed point, it can stop the spinning. But the deeper wisdom of the Dharma gently reveals that true freedom is not found by stopping the wheel, but by trusting its rhythm. Samsara, in this light, is simply the universal rhythm of coming together and falling apart, of birth and death, of joy and sorrow, of high tide and low tide. The anxiety we feel about the past is the resistance to the inevitability of the fall, the refusal to accept that the peak of yesterday must necessarily lead to the valley of today for the next peak to be possible. The past's low points, the deep regrets, the profound losses, the painful mistakes are not the end of your story. They are the depth from which the next height must arise. Imagine a single powerful wave in the ocean. The wave rises in a spectacular crest, full of light and motion. If that wave possessed a mind, it might cling desperately to its crest, fearing the inevitable moment when it must crash and dissolve back into the sea. That fear, that frantic grasping, would ruin the beauty of the crest itself. But the wave does not truly die. It simply becomes the water that forms the trough, the space of quiet depth necessary to gather the energy for the next, equally magnificent wave. The low point is not failure, it is potential. When we cling to fixed outcomes or old identities from the past, the need to always be the person who won, who was right, who had it all, we are refusing to enter the trough. We are fighting the downward current of the cycle, and that fighting is the true source of suffering. This resistance turns a natural, restorative moment of change into a painful, personal failure. The invitation tonight is to see your life not as a problem to be solved, but as a rhythm to be followed. Think of the emotional residue of the past that still holds a grip on you. Is it a memory of shame, a sharp recollection of a harsh word said or received? That memory is the current low point, the trough of the wave. The mind wants to turn away from it. It wants to hide the shame, to deny the pain. But when you turn away from the low point, you cut yourself off from the essential energy needed to rise again. The Zen tradition holds a story about a young student named Jiro, who was obsessed with the idea of escaping the painful cycle of his past. Jiro grew up poor and carried a deep shame about his origins. Though he became a successful scholar, every memory of his childhood poverty felt like a shadow he had to outrun. He sought out the master Dogen, who was sitting in his garden, watching the simple rotation of the 4 seasons. Jiro said, his voice tense with anxiety, Master, I cannot bear the cycle. The moment I achieve happiness, it fades.
The moment I find peace, it is replaced by the old shame of my past. I only want the pure, untroubled heights. I want only spring. How can I escape the wheel of suffering that brings the winter of my memories back again and again? Dogen did not look at him. He pointed to a small dark seed buried beneath the winter soil. Look at the seed, Jiro. It is dark, small, and silent. This is the moment of its greatest low point, the deepest trough. It is cold, it is alone, and its old form has dissolved. It is filled with the memory of the past summer's energy and the shame of the previous autumn's death. But tell me, Jiro, Dogen asked, finally looking at the scholar, his eyes clear and profound. If the seed resists the winter, if it insists on holding rigidly to the identity of the past summer's flower, if it refuses to dissolve and soften in the cold, dark earth, will it ever rise into the new spring? Jiro pondered this. No, Master. It must embrace the cold. It must trust the darkness to transform its rigid form. Exactly, Dogen said gently. The suffering you wish to escape is the necessary cold, dark earth. Your painful memories of the past, your winter, are not a punishment. They are the conditions for your transformation. If you resist the memory, if you refuse to soften and dissolve into the pain, you remain rigid. You refuse to let the seed sprout. Dogen continued, true freedom is not escaping the cold. It is trusting that the cold is an essential part of the warmth. The shame of your past is simply the depth that will make the light of your present success feel profound. When you stop turning away from the pain of yesterday, you transform the suffering. This is the great alchemical truth of the Dharma. Suffering is a moment of transformation when you stop turning away from it. When a painful memory surfaces, your old instinct is to flee, to distract, to judge, or to fight. This is the moment you resist the trough of the wave, and that resistance creates suffering. The new practice is to pause, breathe, and turn towards the memory, or the painful feeling that arises from the past. You don't analyze it. You don't engage with the story. You simply say, gently, to the feeling, I see you. You are here, now. You are the cold, dark earth. I will soften and allow you to be felt. When you allow the feeling of shame, the feeling of regret, or the pang of loss to simply be without resisting it, the feeling loses its rigid structure. It dissolves. It becomes an energetic condition, not a fixed identity. You are letting go of the past, not by fighting it, but by embracing the cyclical nature of its emotional residue. Take a deep, slow breath now. Feel the weight of your body, heavy and supported. You are resting at the bottom of the current cycle. This is a place of deep rest and potential. The past is receding. The memory is softening. You are trusting the rhythm of the universe, knowing that the lowest point of the trough is exactly where the greatest potential for the next rising wave is stored. Let yourself float on the dark, quiet sea of the night. You are not fighting the current. You are moving with it. You are safe in the cycle. We have learned to trust the rhythm of the ocean, embracing the truth that the low tide of memory is essential for the high tide of new potential. But as we rest in this newfound trust, we must confront one of the mind's most powerful, yet most subtle habits: the way our past shapes our perception. You may be at peace with the fact that the events of the past are over, but your mind continues to use the memory of those events as a powerful, distorting lens. This lens is not a flaw. It is simply the mind's operating system. The Buddha spoke of the skandhas, the 5 aggregates, and one of these aggregates, samskara, mental formations, is where all our habitual ways of thinking, our learned beliefs, and our emotional patterns reside. This aggregate is the filter. It is the past's control over the present. Perception, as we experience it, is never neutral. It is always filtered through old belief, emotion, and memory. When you look at the world, you are not seeing the world as it is. You are seeing the world as you are, based on everything that has come before. Think of an experience where you were deeply betrayed. That betrayal, once an event of the past, becomes a dark lens. Now, when a person in the present offers genuine kindness, your filtered perception does not register kindness. It registers suspicion, trap, or ulterior motive. The fact of the world, the person's sincere offering, remains bright and clear, but your filter makes it shadowy. The past, though gone, is still controlling your reality, making you push away the very nourishment you need. Or consider the pervasive belief in unworthiness. Perhaps you were criticized sharply in your youth, and that memory solidified into the mental formation, I am not good enough. Now, in the present, you receive genuine praise or acknowledgement of your talents. The fact of the praise is clear, but your past-based filter rejects it. You perceive the praise as flattery, pity, or misunderstanding. The filter ensures that the past's painful narrative remains intact, even in the face of contradictory evidence. The past self is constantly trying to protect itself from a hurt that is no longer present, and in doing so, it locks you out of the healing potential of the now. The great work of letting go is therefore not about changing the facts of your history. It is about gently removing these dark, habitual filters so that the light of the present moment can shine through, unfiltered. Imagine a beautiful window in an ancient temple. Through the centuries, dust, smoke, and spiderwebs have accumulated, making the bright day outside appear dim, gray, and indistinct. The people inside the temple, never having known true light, begin to believe that the outside world is perpetually dim and gray. Their perception is shaped by the window's accumulated past. The Buddhist path doesn't ask you to deny the dust. The dust is real. The past events are real. It simply gives you the tools to clean the glass. The cleaning tool is clarity, resting in the spacious awareness that hears the thought and sees the feeling, but does not identify with the filter itself. When a memory surfaces, bringing with it a strong, old emotion like fear or anger, your habitual response is to become that fear or anger, to see the world through that emotion. The practice of clarity is to pause and say, ah, this is the old filter. You recognize the emotion as a temporary energy and the thought as an old habitual story. You see that the emotion is dependent on the memory, and the memory is dependent on the intention to hold it. You break the dependent chain by refusing to lend your consciousness to the filter. You step back into the vast, quiet space of the observer. When you rest in this clarity and awareness, the world does not change its facts, but your relationship to those facts shifts entirely.
A classic Zen story illustrates this profound shift with the tale of Master Ikkyu and the traveler. Ikkyu, a wild, eccentric, and wise Zen master, was once confronted by a troubled traveler who carried a deep, self-destructive belief that he was inherently unlucky. Every misfortune that had ever happened to him, a failed business, a lost love, a minor injury, he carried as proof that the universe was rigged against him. His past was not a collection of events. It was a fixed, solid sentence of doom. One day, the traveler arrived at Ikkyu's humble hut, soaked in a sudden downpour, convinced that even the weather conspired against him. "Master Ikkyu," the traveler pleaded, wringing the water from his sodden clothes, "I am cursed. I am unlucky. Why does the world hate me? Why does the past keep repeating its misfortune in the present? Everything I perceive is a sign of my ultimate failure." Ikkyu, who was completely dry beneath the eaves of his roof, simply smiled. "Show me this curse. Show me this bad luck that exists outside of your perception." "I cannot show it to you. It is everywhere," the traveler cried. "It is the rain on my head, the mud on my boots. It is the memory of every lost coin and every failed friendship. It is my life story." Ikkyu then spoke gently, his voice like the soft sound of rain hitting dry leaves. "You see the world as against you, yes, but the world, the rain, the mud, the coins, the friends, is simply being." Ikkyu picked up a small, empty, beautifully glazed bowl. He held it out. "If I give this bowl to a thirsty man, what is it?" "It is a gift of water," the traveler said. "If I drop this bowl and it shatters and I use the sharpest piece to cut a rope and save a life, what is the shattered bowl?" "It is a piece of good fortune. If I shatter the bowl and leave the sharp pieces scattered
On the path for you to step on, what is it?" "It is bad luck, a curse," the traveler finished, shaking his head. Ikkyu put the bowl back down, unbroken. The bowl itself is empty. The events, the giving, the shattering, are also empty of inherent meaning. The label you glue onto the event, bad luck, good fortune, curse, is the filter of your perception, rooted in the memory of your past. The bowl, the event, simply is. It is your mind that is doing the work of cursing. The rain falling now is not a curse. It is simply water, your perception, stained by the memory of failure, is the only thing that insists the rain must be personal. Ikkyu offered the traveler a dry cushion. "Rest here. Do not try to stop the rain, or stop the thoughts. Simply watch the rain falling outside. Every time a memory of bad luck surfaces, do not fight it. Do not believe it. Simply recognize it as the old, dusty filter. Let the thought pass like a cloud." The traveler sat. He watched the rain. He felt the cold air on his skin. He saw the truth. The world was not changing. The rain continued to fall, but his relationship to the facts was shifting. By resting in clarity, he stopped applying the past's dark filter to the present moment. The rain was just rain. The memory was just memory. The anxiety that had been clinging to him dissolved into the quiet stillness of the hut. This is the great comforting truth for you tonight. The world you perceive is the world you create through your attention. You cannot change the facts of your past, but you can choose right now
to remove the filter. Sink deeper into your mattress. Feel the warmth beneath you. The past is nothing more than accumulated dust on the window of your perception. Every time a memory or a sharp critical thought surfaces, a thought of failure, shame, or unworthiness, treat it gently. Do not engage with the story. Simply say, "I see you, old filter. I choose clarity now." As you breathe in the pure light of the present moment. As you breathe out, imagine the dust softening, dissolving, floating away. Rest in the awareness that is untouched, whole, and clear. This clear awareness is your true self, the part of you that has never been a failure, never been wronged, and never been less than perfect. It is the space behind the window, which is always eternally ready to receive the light. Let the light of the present soothe you. Let the facts of your resting body, your calm breath, the gentle support of the mattress be the only reality you accept right now. We have gently wiped clean the window of perception, letting the light of the present moment shine through, without the dark filters of past pain and failure. We now see that the world is not personally cursed, and that the only thing holding the past in place is our own habit of interpretation. But this newfound clarity gives rise to a critical question. If we are no longer defined by the fixed identities of the past, and if we have released the frantic effort of control, how should we act? What is the correct way to engage with the world without becoming lost in striving or dissolving into apathy? The answer lies in the profound discipline of the path. Right effort. Sama Vayama. This teaching is the precise balance between doing too much and doing too little. It is the perfect antidote to the exhaustion that comes from fighting the past and the stagnation that comes from fearing the future. In the hurried world, effort is understood as striving. It means pushing harder, forcing outcomes, and using every last reserve of energy, often driven by the anxiety that if you don't struggle, you will revert to a past failure or fail to replicate a past success. This is wrong effort. It is effort that creates tension, depletes the spirit, and is inherently rooted in the conviction that the present is not enough, that the past must be either violently rejected or desperately recreated. The past fuels this wrong effort in two main ways. First, we cling to past failures, driving us to strive with hypervigilance. We work furiously to ensure that the mistake we made 5 years ago is never repeated, generating a nervous, defensive energy that pollutes the present task. Second, we cling to past successes, forcing us to push and strain to achieve the same result, leading to a fear of not measuring up or a desperate need to solidify an identity that is, by nature, constantly flowing. Both kinds of effort are an attempt to control the past's influence, and both are equally exhausting. Right effort is something entirely different. It is the energy of sincerity without striving. It is not about how hard you push, it is about the quality of the energy you bring to the moment. It is the gentle, steady, and intentional commitment to cultivate beneficial states and abandon unskillful ones, right here, right now. Right effort is divided into 4 simple, beautiful movements, all of which liberate you from the past, preventing the arising of unwholesome states that have not yet arisen, stopping old, negative thought patterns before they start, abandoning the unwholesome states that have already arisen, gently releasing the self-critical voice that recalls the past, developing wholesome states that have not yet arisen, cultivating new habits of kindness, presence, and stillness, maintaining the wholesome states that have already arisen, sustaining the quiet peace you are finding tonight. Notice that all four movements are centered entirely in the present moment. Not one of them involves changing the fixed facts of the past. The work of letting go is therefore an act of right effort. When a memory surfaces, pulling you back into regret, your right effort is the gentle but firm decision to abandon that unwholesome state, the feeling of regret, and maintain the wholesome state, the feeling of deep rest and quiet awareness. This is why right effort feels so light and so effortless, even when the task is difficult. When you are acting with sincerity, you are not owned by the result because your focus is on the act itself. You are holding your plans, your goals, and your memories lightly. Imagine a master calligrapher, old and revered, who is asked to write a single, perfect character. The young student in the room watches, expecting to see a furrowed brow, a trembling hand, and the intense effort of striving. But the master stands over the paper with an air of profound stillness. He dips his brush, not with desperation, but with deep reverence. He breathes slowly. Then, with a single, fluid, intentional movement, he draws the character. The stroke is perfect. It is both strong and delicate, full of life and meaning. The young student, astonished by the apparent ease, asks, "Master, how do you manage to exert such intense effort without striving? I see no tension in your shoulders, no anxiety in your eyes. When I try to write such a perfect stroke, my past failures crowd my mind, and I shake with the effort of trying to force the result." The master smiled, drying the brush slowly on a silk cloth. "When you are striving, my child," he explained, "you are carrying two brushes. The one in your hand is for the work, and the other, invisible brush, is the heavy weight of the past's demands. You are trying to use the first brush to control the movement, while the second brush is trying to erase or replicate something that is gone. Your energy is split. This is wrong effort. When I make the stroke, I use only one brush. My mind is focused entirely on the journey of this single moment, the journey of the ink from the stone to the paper, the path of the hair across the grain. I do not think of the strokes I made yesterday. I do not fear the failure of tomorrow's work. I do not desire the success that will come when the character is complete. I only cultivate the wholesome state of present sincerity. Sincerity means that the intention is pure, that the focus is whole. It means every drop of my life energy is dedicated to the truth of this movement, unburdened by the memory of the past. When the effort is sincere, the body aligns, the breathing settles, and the action becomes effortless, because there is no inner friction, no part of the mind fighting the reality of the present task. This is the freedom of right effort. It is the way of the master, the way of the flow. You are released from the crippling fear of not being good enough, because your work is no longer judged by the standards of a past self. Your work is judged only by the quality of the intention you bring to this present breath. As you lie there, sinking deeper into your rest, feel the muscles in your body. Where do you hold tension? The tension in your jaw, your shoulders, the slight tightening in your stomach. This is often the physical residue of wrong effort. It is the last, subtle physical grasping onto the past, the anxiety of striving to fix or control what is already finished. Now, practice right effort in your rest. Do not try to fall asleep. That would be striving. Instead, simply cultivate the wholesome state of surrender.
Prevent any new cycle of anxious thought from starting. If the mind begins to spin forward or backward, gently interrupt it. Abandon the old memory of the past that tries to assert itself. Let the thought dissolve. Develop the soft, heavy feeling of your body sinking into the mattress. Encourage the weight of your limbs. Maintain the steady, rhythmic flow of your breath, an anchor in the perfect sincerity of the present moment. The effort is gentle, yet firm. It is the steady hand of the master, not the anxious grip of the student. It is the continuous return to the center, trusting that what is yours to do now, which is to rest, to heal, to find stillness, will naturally and effortlessly follow. The work of letting go is not about forcing an erasure of the past. It is about a profound shift in the quality of your energy. You stop struggling to hold on, and you start flowing with the rhythm of the moment. The past's ghosts can only chase you if you are running. When you stand still, centered in the sincerity of this present breath, they have nowhere to hide. They dissolve into the vast open space of awareness. Let your hands unclench. Let your feet be soft. The work is not done by strain, but by simple, powerful presence. You are returning to the truth that you are inherently whole, and this wholeness requires only your sincere attention, not your desperate effort. You are the master calligrapher now, simply watching the gentle, perfect stroke of your own breathing. We have journeyed through the exhaustion of control, the liberating truth of impermanence, the creative power of present intention, and the clarifying light of unburdened perception. We rest now in the stillness of right effort, which asks us to act with sincerity, unburdened by the memory of the past. As we settle into this deep, quiet sincerity, we come to the final, most beautiful teaching on letting go. The mandala principle and the essence that remains. Imagine now the high, clear air of Tibet in a quiet monastery where monks have spent days creating something of exquisite, almost unbearable beauty. The sand mandala. This is not just a work of art. It is a sacred, living diagram of the universe. With painstaking, perfect precision, guided by profound meditation and the energy of right effort, they have poured millions of grains of colored sand, creating intricate patterns of deities, palaces, and cosmic geometry. It is flawless, a perfect representation of harmony, created with dedication that resists any flaw. Every particle of sand, every line, every color is a prayer, a lesson, a moment of presence. The form of the mandala is a symbol of the perfect self, the ideal outcome, the most beautiful life you could have lived. For days or weeks, the mandala exists in its fixed, perfect form. And then, the true lesson begins. After the consecration ceremonies are complete, the moment comes for the final, ultimate act of non-attachment: dissolution. The high-ranking monk takes a ceremonial brush, and with a single, slow, profound sweep, he destroys the mandala. All that exquisite, painstaking perfection, the hours of focused energy, the millions of prayers, is reduced instantly to a pile of swirling, multicolored dust. This act is not destruction. It is the ultimate affirmation of impermanence, anicca. It is the physical manifestation of shunyata, emptiness. The beautiful form, the fixed image of perfection, never had a permanent, inherent existence. It was always meant to be dissolved. The beauty was never in the result, the fixed form,
but in the process, the sincere effort. The past is your mandala. Your life, with its triumphs, its failures, its most cherished moments, and its deepest regrets, is the perfect, beautiful form that was created, grain by grain, by your awareness and your actions. You are now lying here, clutching the memory of that past mandala, trying desperately to keep its form fixed, fearing that if you let it go, everything is lost. But the mandala principle teaches you that the destruction of the form is not an end, it is a transmutation. The monks gather the dust, the swirling, mixed residue of all those hours of work, and they carry it down to a flowing river. With profound reverence, they pour the dust into the current, scattering it to the wind and the water. This is the essence that remains. The essence of the mandala is not the fixed pattern. It is the blessing and the wisdom contained in the creation process. The dust is scattered to share the blessings with the world, to remind every corner of the earth that everything is in motion. The form fades, but the essence, the lessons, the love, the sincerity, the profound truth of impermanence is released, unbound, and available to you now. When you cling to the fixed form of the past, the memory of success, the memory of failure, the identity of who you used to be, you are trying to cling to the fragile sand pattern that is already gone. Letting go is the courageous act of trusting the scattering. Trusting the scattering means accepting that your past achievements will never be replicated perfectly, because the conditions are always different. It means accepting that your past mistakes are now just the mixed-up dust. They are no longer a fixed pattern of failure, but simply raw, impersonal material that holds the wisdom of what not to do. You are called tonight to deepen your trust, not just in life's continuous unfolding, but in its necessary, constant fading. The cycle must begin again, and it can only do so because the heavy, rigid form of the past has been dissolved. The center is always there. The essence that remains is not an object. It is a capacity. It is the capacity for love, for wisdom, for tenderness, forged in the fires of everything you have been through. And this essence must be guarded, not by clinging to the past, but by cultivating self-compassion, karuna, for the self that walked the difficult path. Self-compassion is the ultimate foundation for moving forward without the heavy burden of the past. For too long, you may have treated the self that lived the past, the self that made the mistakes, the self that was hurt, as an enemy to be punished, or a flaw to be hidden. The shame, the self-criticism, the anxiety about repeating history, these are all ways of attacking the past self. But this is wrong effort. It is splitting your energy. Compassion, in the Buddhist sense, is the discipline to stay when it hurts, to soften when you want to run, and to forgive the self that was struggling. It is the courageous act of looking at the past self and seeing not a fixed failure, but a frightened, struggling being who was simply doing its best with the limited vision and energy it possessed at that time. You realize the past self was a novice, a struggling figure, working with incomplete information and old patterns. You would offer kindness to a struggling friend. Why deny it to the self that went through all of that for you? This forgiveness is not indulgence. It is the discipline that frees your energy for the present. When you stop fighting and punishing the past self, you stop carrying the heavy spiritual exhaustion of that inner war. Your presence becomes more honest, more spacious. You stop needing to prove your strength by covering up the past, and you start showing up as you are, tender, vulnerable, and completely whole. This final act of self-compassion is the true end of the past's control. You no longer need constant affirmation or fixed labels of success. You are resting in the essence that remains, the quiet, steady beat of your own heart, the simple, profound truth of your inherent goodness, which has never been touched by the dust of any past mandala. Let your entire being soften now. Imagine the last remnants of the past's burden. The heavy memories, the sharp edges of regret, the fixed identity of shame, turning into soft, light, multicolored dust. This dust holds the wisdom of all those years. Now, with a long, slow exhale, imagine yourself gently, respectfully, gathering that dust and releasing it into the vast, quiet current of the night. You are scattering the past to the universe. You are sharing the blessing of your experience. The pattern has dissolved. The form is gone. But the essence, the wisdom, the tenderness, the capacity to start anew is released, unbound, and available to guide you. You are safe. You are free. You are resting in the knowledge that the cycle of your life is perfect, precisely because it is always in motion, always dissolving, always renewing. Rest now in the quiet wisdom of the dust. Please remember to subscribe to the channel to hear more.